We're here with Dr. Jim Brodrick, and Jim was the solid-state lighting technology manager in the Building Technologies office at the U.S. Department of Energy. And I'm going to start this, Jim, before we start our conversation, with a quote that appeared in LEDs magazine right after your retirement. And I liked the summary that they did. They said there are many people in the LED and SSL sectors that have played key roles in pushing the LEDs in place of legacy light sources. But you would have to place the name of Jim Brodrick near the top of any such list of industry players. Brodrick wasn't directly responsible for LED technology breakthroughs. He didn't develop compelling lamps and luminaires, and he wasn't directly responsible for the sale of any LED lamps. But the programs that Brodrick administered indirectly achieved or enabled all of the above. And arguably, Brodrick was as responsible as anyone for the SSL market transformation. That's strong. That's a legacy.
Yeah.
And I, having known you for many years, I know that is the case. So you had what? Dozens of people working for you at in your office?
Yeah. The solid state lighting team is a crackerjack hand-selected group of about 25 people who I would work with, some of them every day on a phone call. I was the only person in Washington. And there'd be phone calls of various frequencies with some of the people, and then the testing people and stuff were a little less frequent, and then there was a total of about 200 people that were on the DOE money. They won awards, and they were doing research at some university or elsewhere. It was a large group, and as you mentioned, we saw the mission of helping the solid-state lighting technology, market, industry, the players, for a better path, getting these items on the market.
But those 200 people that you're mentioning, those are people that you reached out to. They weren't working for the DOE. You didn't have a big bloated bureaucracy behind you. You kind of ran a one-man show.
Well, yes, I was the only person in Washington. Maybe that's good.
Yeah.
Different. There were people, consultants and national lab people involved in the program, and then we'd have open solicitations, competitive solicitations to bring people in to further some performance, a phosphor, a semiconductor, a whole integrated lamp, and improve upon this that they probably wouldn't have done without the DOE funding, or they would have done it 5 years later. We did that, and we also got into what's called market deployment, and this is where we would test products that were released by companies. And
that'd be the Caliper program.
Caliper, yes, sir, and a little bit the Gateway program, which
sure.
Maybe I should add at the end. And this was a straight-up test, LM 70, 79, and 80, and then we would publish the data. And at times, the manufacturer was a little overly excited, and some of the numbers weren't correct. And there were certainly some discussions on the phone, but what it brought is guidance and limitations, and people really want to know the truthful numbers, and let's not let this get into the Wild West.
Yeah.
And this went on for quite a few years. In, I don't know, 200 or 300 products were tested in the earlier years of the solid-state lighting products becoming on the market.
Mm-hmm. And I've got a quote from you back in 2012 at a DLC stakeholder meeting. You said that the DOE is in a unique position as the trusted source of unbiased information for education buyers on SSL technology, and that is a gap you filled.
Yeah, well, this is a role the government can and should participate to in a broader sense, keep the market healthy. What I mean by healthy, that as you read that label, that's what you're buying. And boy, people want that. And the industry does too, in a general sense. And that was the Lighting Facts program, which now is at the FTC, and they gave many kudos to us to jump out of the box early and do this. And they remarked from their experiences, this is Hampton Newsom, that this was one of the best experiences they had seen on new products coming on the market and not creating a mess. So trusted, not biased, absolutely. The cards fall on the table the way they fall, and that's what we pass out. The companies who felt that it wasn't quite their number, they got the full test report, and nobody called back. So
It's I recall every one of those caliper reports when they came out, and you really revealed that the marketing information didn't always align with the performance data.
Correct.
And that helped put the industry in a much better position because we had those problems with CFL in the past, and we didn't want to repeat them. So
Correct. In 2006 we did a study about the CFL period of time, which was fascinating. And some of the companies that made the CFLs, it's sort of like pre-95, are interesting. They aren't here, or they never made another one. One of the key things, which we got out of the report, is there was bad communication. The utilities thought they had an energy-efficient item. Let's just push it. The companies thought what they got was great. The consumer agreed with neither, and nobody was talking with anybody. Nobody was sort of providing this neutral, unbiased testing data to show what was really happening, and it was a real mess for quite a few years. CFLs kind of got, quote, the black eye, and the customers were not satisfied. I have a CFL from 1985. It's a Panasonic, and it's huge. My wife hated it, and so now it's with the Witness Protection Program. So it's safe, but it's a real artifact in how kind of bad they were.
they were. And some of those first LEDs, my wife hated those.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the first LEDs were a bit messy.
Yep.
In the test results, we revealed all that. And also we funded, a large part of it was the chips. And if you recall, like the early flashlights, the flashlights all had the blue ring, white in the middle and the blue ring. And a lot of people ask me, what is this? Which is right. And it's an alignment problem with the phosphor and the completeness of the conversion. But anyhow, we got involved with that. We funded straight R&D on chip improvement. We funded testing thereof. And every year we would release a program plan which had a graph. And this graph was very motivational, and we wanted it to be that way.
Is this the roadmap?
Yes,
The
the
DOE
roadmap.
roadmap?
Yeah, another name for it. And it showed where the state of the market is, and that would be so far up the graph. And then what we felt it could do. And so it was a challenge. It was also a report on the chip makers, and we also put the projects that we funded, we put that data point on there too, because as a taxpayer, we're spending your money. What are you doing with it? So you can see we were in the mix, but the companies always kind of withheld that special extra one, as they always, right, for themselves, and that seems all normal.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. There may be one or two people that are cynical about us talking so positively about a government program.
I'm sure.
So I at this point, let me mention just one of the benefits of your efforts. In 2016, as I recall, your program was responsible for a $2.8 billion savings in energy savings. So that's everyone using LEDs benefited financially from this. And not just the United States, actually, even though that was your focus, it was worldwide. So how many billions of dollars did you have to spend to save that?
The program cost $0.5 billion.
$500,000.
$500 million.
$500 million, I'm sorry.
Over like 15 years. So it's year after year, and it adds up for 15 years to be about $500 million total.
So you spent $500 million over 15 years, and in 1 year alone, the energy savings was $2.8 billion, and that's a gift that keeps on giving, right?
Oh, absolutely. They go up about $500 million a year. And more people are using the product, The products keep getting better, more efficient, and thus when they are installed and replace the old stuff, the efficiency change is even bigger, so there's more savings. And the sweet thing about all this, it goes to the taxpayer. The people who put the money up for the program actually can put some money back in their pocket at this hotel or at the hospital. I mean, how sweet's that? A lot of the federal programs are kind of disconnected from the taxpayer.
So you'll be running for president this year?
Not this year. It's kind of crowded, and I don't think I have a persuasive argument, but
credibility.
Credibility. I was really happy that this happened. I didn't dream it would be this much, but then if you kind of look at the numbers, that it really is a number that high, and there's more to come for the consumer to save the energy. Also, the program focused on efficacy, so efficiency, energy use, etc. Also focused on lighting quality. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned a few minutes ago, the flashlight with the blue ring around the white light. Okay, we've kept encouraging the companies to do better. We did fund some projects in this area, and the phosphors got better. And there's a number of ways to do this. You can coat the chip. You can coat the cover, you can coat the lens. But anyways, coating got much, much better, and all this led to better lighting for people. And you can get products now that just have wonderful light. Now, there'll be a premium because this takes extra care and pieces of equipment in the light. Mm-hmm. But you never had this 30 years ago. No way.
No. Well, there was a diversity of attributes that you were working on at the DOE, and I remember from your workshops that you were focused on how light affects plants, how light affects animals, the LED lights in terms of glare from roadway, flicker. I mean, it just went on, and color. It wasn't just energy and efficiency.
Correct. So I'll expand in a second, but you can have the most efficient, efficacious lamp and no one's going to buy it because it'll probably be tinted green and God knows what else they'll mess up. So you can't have that. You can't have pure energy efficiency. And so we focused on a lot of these other attributes because the semiconductor opened up a whole new world. Mm-hmm. And they were lightweight, very durable. They were low heat, so when you're in under spotlights and stuff, it's not hot. And all this stuff that came with it. And then the question, other people started looking at it for these other applications. Human light interaction is extremely important. We know enough in verifiable testing that this is really interesting, and there are positive effects, very interesting positive effects. There also is that chance of do no harm, and it's like some sun's good, but sunburn isn't fun. Mm-hmm. It's sort of thinking like that. And you'd rather learn these things earlier than later. And the health effects are really interesting and should be looked into a lot more. There's effects with plants and animals, how sort of indoor growing conditions for either can be very, very careful. And in some cases, it's a necessity. Apparently, tilapia fish are grown indoors, and the water is very carefully monitored. They don't want any outdoor effect, wind, breeze, leaves, mm-hmm. because the fish get sick, and then you lose, quote, the entire crop.
Yeah.
And it's getting into these new things they couldn't have done years ago efficiently, but the LED platform allows all these other value-added attributes, and it's just you're just starting to look at them, and hopefully all this stuff gets looked at a lot more.
Well, I hope that the program, which is continuing
yes.
in your absence,
yep.
I hope they do the research on some of those areas. Certainly
yes.
with the do no harm mindset.
Oh, absolutely. Also, DOE is a great choice as a convener. No bias. We don't sell anything.
Yeah.
People will usually listen to us. We invite them. We have developed great credibility with the solid state lighting program, and we've been good at bridging. So we bring in the doctors who are actually medical researchers who do all the stuff with your eye and then the glands that react to what the eye gets as lighting, all this stuff. And they talk through all these long words I can't even say. And then we talk to them about the spectrum of the light and what daylight is, but what you can do with LEDs is have a slightly different lighting profile. Mm-hmm. And they're fascinated. And this is something that's needed because you've got to get sort of these two groups to talk. Remember, we found out in 2006 that one of the problems was communications, that compact fluorescence just kind of messed up. Well, the same thing can happen here. Mm-hmm. And then occasionally, and regretfully, you'll get some sort of bogus claim that needs to be debunked. And so we have our friends in the medical community that would help debunk this about lighting. And building these partnerships and pathways is something the government can do. They just need to push. And it's always fun learning all the Latin names for the body glands. I wasn't too excited about it, but that's what happens.
Yeah, well, you mentioned debunking, and I do recall you were the first to come out. Your office was the first to issue a report to debunk the portions of the AMA report.
Yes. That is, thanks. That's a bit of a success story for the government. I got a phone call around noon that this story had come out. It had sort of incomplete sentences and some sentences that were just not real as physics of lighting. I called the people at PNNL, and 2 hours later we had 4 PNNL people and me on the phone. They had read the article. We went through it. We decided what points to make. And in with 10 days, we released like an 8-page paper that fairly thoroughly went through everything. And from reading the paper, you kind of see, wow, they forgot to say that, that the sun was up. I mean, it's just that fundamental. And it's like they had neglected things and stuff. So you can say it's sloppy work or needed more review. The big thing, they should have called in IES or somebody to look at the lighting portion of it.
Yeah, they did the report before we were very involved with, but
yes.
Those
things unfortunately happen. Yeah. But here's a role for the government. It's usually not too good, but we did this in 10 days because that's what we agreed. I said we got to get out fast because the fire is starting and it starts to spread, mm-hmm. and it goes fast when it's negative news.
Indeed.
And you want to stop it, and you can never completely stop it, but you can get good, solid information out there for people to make a judgment.
And you did it quickly. It was impressive.
10 days.
And I mean this as a term of endearment, but you talk like a lighting geek. Okay, but you didn't start in lighting.
No.
So what was your first memory of lighting?
Yes, this is, it would be Penn State freshman physics. I'll give you the year, 66, 67.
John Flynn?
Yeah. And you got like 15 minutes.
John Flynn,
yeah,
right.
15 minutes or something. It was just astounding. And I remember it, and I thought, gee, that's interesting. And then they went off to other sort of physics principles because that's what they had to get through in a freshman mm-hmm. year. That was the first time I had thought about lighting in any sort of science terms at all. Mm-hmm. Until around 2000, year 2000. I worked in other industries, other disciplines, which help. Kind of quickly, I was involved in a number of data-taking experiments. One was two-phase flow for steam-water interaction. And we were actually the first people to ever do this because it was very violent. Mm-hmm. So steam occupies a space 500 times the same weight of water. And so you break pipes when you do this stuff, where you shoot the water and the steam. Anyways, what do you take from that? So your life experience is that not all data is good. You have to look at the data and make sure you get the ones that are real. I found a calibration error. And so we had to go back and retest a bunch of stuff. So suspect is maybe a little strong, but always look at your data and make sure. And my thing is no preconceived notion. Don't get yourself sold. The person in an experiment most likely to get fooled is yourself. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
God,
So you were able to build on some previous experiences.
Oh, yeah.
So when did you start with the being program manager?
Okay. So this is about 2000, 2001, and the program started with $500,000 of funded research and 2 companies. One was Nitrous, which got purchased by Cree Research, and the other, I can't reveal the name, but the initials are GE.
Okay.
So we won't say too much. But
All right.
that was on OLEDs. And it started out very slowly. I met and interacted with the researchers a lot. I met with the IS people, IALD. You want to meet as many people as you can because you're a federal government program. And listen to what they have to say. And they always have something to say. And you always listen because you're a public servant. And then you integrate it. And I could see that this thing is going to take off. And in those early years, you may remember, some of the companies felt very queasy that this was going to be a flash in the pan, scientific whiz-bang, not going to go anywhere. They were hesitant, and they didn't do anything. From the people I talked with, I placed my bets that this is going to take off. And we kept getting more and more money and more projects. And for the last 10 years, it's $25 million a year. And a number of projects, including a lot of SBIR projects, which are always interesting. These people are super energetic. Their ideas sometimes work,
So you just
doesn't.
used a government acronym.
Okay, Small Business Innovative Research. Thank you.
Well.
Thank you. And they're very energetic. They come up with some great ideas, and some of them don't pan out, but that's research. If you think this is good, try it. And then if they succeed, then maybe you fund them more. And it's open door.
Okay.
Open door. You want to let everybody who has an idea in the door and talk to you, and maybe even a proposal. And we got some stuff coming out of left field. Some of these companies were working in lubricants, and they had those boron nitride particles, which also are excellent for light diffraction. But they also work as a lubricant. And so this came out of left field. And this allows the reflection diffraction of the light, so the LED isn't as point bright.
It's not as much of a point source.
Yeah.
Diffuses it. Okay.
So you never know who's going to come.
Were there specific people that you counted on early on as you were starting to accrue this information about lighting? And
Oh, yeah. Well, I started assembling people. I would meet people and talk with them, et cetera, and I started to recruit a team because the program has a really wide range of areas that you have to answer questions, and I'm not the expert. So we have people that are over in semiconductor science and laying down and then 1 atom thick layers in partial pressure vacuums at 1100 degrees centigrade. I mean, it's like, boy, this is crazy. And then it moves more into making a source or a little LED source, and then the integration. Then we have mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, chemists, on. And I recruited people along the pathway, including people in the market deployment area. We visited a lot of utilities. We visited every major retailer, which is always fascinating. The retailers are looking to purchase wholesale something that they're going to sell. And it's sort of a little different viewpoint, but we caught their interest and we had credibility that they would use lighting facts, and they would talk to no manufacturer who didn't have a lighting facts label on their product. So instantly they were buying higher efficiency. Then we gave them grades. It was a bit heady.
Yeah.
And we say, well, here's where the entire of what you're selling and your competitor is selling, and your products are here. You want to talk about a phase change. these people immediately changed what they bought if they weren't up near the top. And so this got the big box people moving faster and also kind of smarter about efficacy. But yes, you got to have maybe 85 CRI, maybe better than that. And they really relied on caliper, et cetera. And my team, phone conversations, we would meet with them. They came and talked at our workshops. And
you held a retailer's workshop.
Oh, absolutely.
It was over a decade ago, and I remember
Yep.
it was by invitation only for manufacturers. And at the time I was working for one, I went to the workshop, and I was so impressed that you'd solicited commitments. I don't know if you shamed these folks or not, but you solicited commitments from big players, Target, Walmart, Whole Foods, and they committed, and they did it.
Yes,
and
yeah.
it helped drive. It was just one factor, I'm sure, but it helped drive your program.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that kind of backing is great. I mean, and, how do you get it? You got to be credible. And I think I mentioned I went into it quite a few years ago, the major retailer in the nation. And they weren't too sure about this government program character coming in. And they gave me 20 minutes, and I stayed over an hour because the story was good, it was interesting and compelling, and they signed on to do more with energy efficiency products. So some of it is you go out and kind of recruit. And I used to go to a number of meetings each year, strategy and light, of the IES meetings, ILD meetings, and and some of the seminars. And would give a speech, but the real purpose was to recruit. I mean, people can listen to me forever and may not be the best, but recruiting all these companies to play in the game is just big. And you just gain more momentum.
Well, yeah, and it was visionary of you to think of those individual market segments. But in terms of momentum, I know you had Navigant doing projections. Did the market acceleration match your expectations?
Not always. We would collect a lot of data and map it out and make sure this graph got well passed around. And so the companies could see they were a little behind, they were ahead, and where does DOE think we're going? And we actually would do that curve based off some data we had. We also would talk to the companies and see what they thought. So the curve always went up, but it did do a tailing off, of course. And it always was good to include the companies in a way of incentivizing them for the improvements. And we always talked to them about CRA. I got phone calls. All you care about is efficiency. That is not true. We always put in the CRI and what the CCT was, all these metrics. Here I am I'm using geek language.
Yes, you are.
And so you got the quality of light. It's like, why would you buy a high-efficiency TV if the screen's out of focus? It makes no sense. And we compelled most of them through positive reinforcement. A few got hand slaps. And you end up with like sort of an unintentional power. And I never liked using power. I always liked to motivate and engage people, because that lasts so much longer. And we were good at that.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
In fact, you even had a soundtrack to it. You should have put together a CD of the songs you've chosen for all of your workshops. How did that music association come about?
Okay, I'm a music fan. I remember a lot of music. I was linked into the music industry a little bit, obviously, but I felt that the speeches and everything was so informationally dense that after you hear three speakers, you probably need a break. And so we would have the break and we'd play music, and then we would have guessing games about who it was. A lot of the cities had themes that would match the localities. Like for Detroit, we did Motown.
Sure.
When we were in Long Beach, our theme was to break the barrier of higher efficacy. So we had Jim Morrison and the Doors sing "Break On Through the Other Side." The following day, I got an email from John Dorfman, who was the drummer for the original doors, and he said if he'd have known, he heard this through his niece who was in the audience, he would have come down.
Missed opportunity.
That was beautiful. But, well, but the people seemed to like it, and if you quite didn't, it was easy to ignore it. And it also worked good on logistics. When the music started, they knew it was break.
Yeah.
And when the music started again, they knew it was to come in the room. So that part worked great.
It's Pavlovian for me.
That's
worked.
it. That's
it worked.
Yep.
In addition to the workshops, you had a lot of programs going on. We touched a little bit on Caliper now, that was, monitoring the accuracy of marketing claims and the state of the industry at the same time. And then there was Gateway for real-world applications. People couldn't argue with that data because it was actually installed product physically. It wasn't just projections, right?
Yep.
And the L Prize, maybe we should talk a little about that too.
Yeah. The L Prize, it was meant as a challenge with a monetary prize of $10 million. And there were rules of process of how you submit and this and that. Then there's the specification. It was really quite challenging. There's at least five parameters you had to meet. And meeting one or two of them, a number of companies could do it. But meeting all five became a gigantic headache. And this ended up with a 60-watt equivalent integral screw-in bulb, which had miniaturized electronics. I was one of the first ones with very miniaturized electronics, which was a heat transfer challenge. Then the optics were vastly better. We had the 900 lumens, 90 lumens per watt. You had to have, I think it was 2,700 Kelvin, so a warm white, and a CRI above 90, and it ended at 94. The samples submitted in 2008 are still in a test room at P&L, and they passed 60,000 hours.
That's amazing.
And they're things like a tank. It just keeps going and going, 60,000 hours. And it's very durable because it's all LEDs, and the optics was a new approach of optics at that time with remote phosphors. So Philips won the award, and within about a year later, a lot of other companies came out on their own nickel to do roughly the same thing. They had to compete. The challenge was set, and they went after it, and it kind of changed the integral screw-in a light bulb area. My suggestion is let's do it again, and we'll freshen the requirements. First, you want about 200 lumens per watt. Now, probably no one's asking for it, but if you got it at roughly the same price, that might be interesting. You can also have almost perfect color from today, and it appears that something of almost an infinite lifetime. So, okay, certainly a reach, but that's what you want. And if you're a homeowner and you buy a new house, and if you were to put these in your house, you would be more likely to take out the toilet before you took out the light bulb. That's how long they'll last. This is like people, who thought of that? But it's time to change, how lighting works.
Yes, and in terms of the change, you were in charge of solid state lighting, not in charge of the DOE's LED program, but their solid state lighting program.
Right.
So you had some solid state lighting that hasn't had the same market penetration yet.
That's right.
Can you speak to OLED and lasers and
Yeah.
how you think those may
Let's do
transition?
lasers, then we come back to the organic
Sure.
LEDs. The lasers will probably be in a niche market. Directly, I don't think DOE funded any activity, and my reasoning was they're not likely to get more efficient than an LED. So, okay, but you if properly installed and used in the right application, has such advantages that even if it's not as efficient, it's going to move ahead. And this is the European auto market with LED or laser headlights, which due to the collimation of the headlight, I think they say you can see a mile down the road. Also, that column is movable. That's kind of nice.
Yep.
And even though it might not be as efficient, that doesn't matter on a car. And also it's light and it's pretty durable. And there have been some accidents. I talked to some people in the Federal Highway, and the front end's done, but the LEDs work. Well, that's not surprising. It's almost impossible to destroy them. It might be the wires got cut or this or that, but they're so durable. And so lasers will go into these throwing the light a long distance out. Maybe they'll get into stadiums. I don't know. I just think it's fascinating. But DOE up to now has not funded the laser area. Organics. We have funded the organic light emitting diodes, and just to keep the car talk going, these are now going to be taillights, if not this year, next model year, which are fascinating because of the geometry. You couldn't pull this off with a traditional method because point sources would not be able to evenly illuminate this red cover on the brake light in the rear of the automobile. It's because the entire surface lights. It's not just a point source. So OLEDs are going to move into that. They're lightweight. They've moved up their lifetime and durability, apparently because they're passing the tests for these automakers, or they wouldn't be there. Low energy use, yeah, that's something in the game. As far as buildings go, I think there is a spot. It's going to be tough for them head on to go against LEDs. But in maybe residential things, table lamps, torchiers, decorative lighting, they have a great advantage. So why is there no light bulb in this lamp? Oh, the shade is the light. And they can do that. And they can change colors. And you can dim. And it's just a different, does the shade have to remain in the geometry that light shades were invented for incandescent, right? No, you can make the shade look even wilder or maybe more aesthetic. And other things, of course, it's low energy consumption. And that may allow that other things might get added to the lamp. And then the name lamp might even go away. So you'll have this thing sitting on the table by you, but it's not called a lamp anymore. And you turn it on, and or maybe you say turn on, and you can read something, whatever. And so the future has all these interesting things, and they need to be thought through, and they need to be tried. And what is it? It's not your father's Oldsmobile. The lighting people, that's where we are.
But you're talking about a number of technologies that have been breaking through. Without government funding, do you think these breakthroughs would have occurred?
Possibly. There's two or three things. One is the L Prize. I got some examples. The L Prize did cause a jump, and then the other manufacturers responded. That probably would have taken 5 years because of incremental improvements in playing it safe in the market. And you can't blame those people. But this forced them to move. So the L Prize did that. The program covered from physics of semiconductors all the way up to working with the retailers and the utilities. That kind of thing the government can do and should do. And that's an area that made the market probably move faster. And the one quote from Mark McClary is, the DOE program is the guide, the guardrails of the highway where everybody is racing like crazy to get down as fast as they can. And it keeps everybody on the road and on the path where a lot of accidents may have happened. The third thing is, every year we would release this roadmap or project plan, which would show how the LEDs and the OLEDs were improving. And if it came from a company, like, well, that's nice, I'm sure I'm to buy their company product, right? But if coming from DOE, that's not it. And you look to inspire these companies to move ahead and be part of the future. And those are sort of things. The Solid State Lighting Program, working with a lot of the trade associations, IES, IALD, a lot of people, and then the people who actually hand the product out to the consumer, the big boxes, people, the utilities. Together, you change the trajectory of how the light performed and how many got sold. There's almost no question. Now, DOE is part of it, but everybody's a part of it too.
Yeah, but as you're talking about it, I'm thinking of, I'm searching my mind for other government programs and that were comparable, and the only thing I came up with was NASA. I mean, because here we had a program where a government spent a lot of money on technology, and it had consequential benefits for decades.
Yeah.
And yours is already moving into the second decade.
Yes, that's correct. And it's very satisfying. You get a warm feeling, that so many good things happen, with the program and joining with all the partners to have this move in a better trajectory for basically everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you say the word leadership, maybe. There are a lot of people that advised me, and I always listened. And but I still have my Enron stock. But just by listening, you engage them. If you don't listen to them, it's not good. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of advice, and then you'd sort through it. And I'd talk it over with the South State Lighting team. I made the final decision, but it wasn't always that hard. I had to because I was legally responsible.
Well, initially, it seemed like your charge was to accelerate the penetration of LEDs into the marketplace for energy reasons, energy efficiency, and of course there's a return on investment story there. But at least in the labs now, that's pretty much done. They exceeded 300 lumens per watt, and it's not the product that's currently in the marketplace.
Correct.
But is there an end game to energy efficiency? Are we there?
In practicality and market, there will be a price point performance where it isn't going to become active in the market. Now, as far as DOE is concerned, they can press ahead and end up with chips or chip systems that are over 300 lumens per watt. Okay? Certainly a challenge, certainly something that could have some benefits, but it is kind of their mission. And maybe we don't know it, but as you get up there in this higher level, that it will stimulate something else that you didn't think about to come out. And we can certainly remember that the Chia chip in about 2007 was 20 lumens per watt. They didn't even make it. Yeah, that's history. So they keep going up the staircase, whether they kind of like it or not. And if DOE were to fund a company or several companies and reduce their risk and their cost, maybe they would put it out there in a way of a flagship product, and eventually might garner enough interest. And maybe it's something sort of like, well, we have the lamp, and it's got a 200 lumen per watt light source in it, and I can run 10 amps, right, off that wall plug or something. Maybe I cook my dinner on the lamp. I don't know. I mean, you got to do this free-form thinking, because this is where really different things happen. Was it the iPhone? Nobody knew they wanted it, right?
Yeah, that was Steve Jobs' statement, and the before that not just iTunes, but the
Sony Walkman?
No, Sony
Remember that
Walkman,
one?
yeah. But no, after he said, I didn't think anybody ever wanted 25,000 songs in their pocket, or nobody ever thought anybody wanted 25,000 songs in their pocket, but now they carry it around.
They do, absolutely. And so maybe it's time for some free-form thinking, and work off the basis that lighting now has a new source and new capabilities. Color changing, dimming, low consumption. Maybe you could make it a little bit lower. I don't know. Yep. And then what can you do? I mean, with human health studies, you might find that the person, when they're reading, really needs a different spectrum than they've gotten for the last century. Mm-hmm. And maybe they need it brighter. Maybe they need it dimmer. Maybe I'm a little older. Well, we don't have to say anything about that. But that. If the light knows how old I am, then it knows I probably need more light to read. Sure. But if one of my grandchildren sits down, it probably should dim quite a bit. And then it's just more relaxed for the person to read. Well, we got to start thinking like this, out of the box. What is the light used for? Well, it's probably for reading. Maybe some people sew. I don't know, some sort of hands thing.
Okay, you're still actively engaged mentally in this process, even if you've stepped away from the DOE.
Yeah.
What's next for Jim Brodrick?
Oh, wow. Well, I've as I told you earlier, I'm slowly finding out what retirement's about, and I found this is my one hard data fact. It's 6 Saturdays sequential, followed by a Sunday. And then you start it over. And I probably will resume dabbling around here and there in the lighting. I'm now 4 grandchildren, and my wife and I have moved to Delaware to the resort areas, and a little slower pace for a while. Then I'll probably get antsy.
Well, once you get the lighting bug, lighting people never leave.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, I'll tell my wife that.
Yeah, let me know how that works out. We've talked about a number of successes from your program. What do you think is the greatest, personally to you, what's the greatest success of your career effort?
Okay. 2 items. And this is important, and it's not meant to be funny. I'm a fellow. My wife took that plaque, and she never let go of it.
Wow.
She was so revved up. It meant a lot to her because I wasn't around a lot over the last 15 years. So I think that is wonderful, and thanks to the IES and the board. And I'm a different shade of cat. I'm not a lighting designer. I'm not this. I'm a different type of person. The other one is the person thing. In all the societies, retailers, lighting manufacturers that I worked with, I always felt really positive about that. Always a warm feeling that these people were interested and they wanted to contribute. And boy, that's nice. And they jumped right in and rolled up their sleeves, and away we went. And that probably is another one of the things that you count for success, because you don't want to use command and control. You'd rather have the person be buying in, and it's on their part of their own personal dream. And I've heard a lot of people's dreams, and it is interesting. And they're self-motivated. And my question to my staff was, in the morning when you're combing the hair in front of the mirror, are you thinking about solid-state lighting? Because I want you to. The last hour before you fall to sleep is the second most productive hour of your day. And most people don't even think about that. You're supposed to keep a tablet and pen by the bed. And I do this all night. And I'm a 2 o'clock person. At 2 o'clock, I'll write something down. And I was always interested in motivating my team and the people who are participating, because you get so much more if they're motivated and feel they're going to get credit and it's a positive outcome from them. And so, that's it. Those are the 2.
Well, I can speak to the lighting community, having been a part of it for several decades, that you are every bit a member of the lighting community. You really fit in. Initially, everybody, of course, thought, what's the Department of Energy going to do?
Oh, yeah. What's this government guy? Because I'm here to help.
But you learned. You took an active interest. You learned. You met with people. And you met with these different societies, like IALD, certainly, IES. Right. Were those societies supportive? Did you get help from us?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. As you say, initially they weren't so sure. And
you anticipated that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I wrote a column for a magazine. I don't know if
10 years.
You already named it.
Lighting Design and Application,
yeah.
Right?
And Paul Terraconi said, well, I've seen these government types before. They blow hot, they blow cold, and usually they'll do 2 articles and they're gone. He said, this one, 10 years. And that is good. So initially they're a little skeptical, but I think they warmed up to it. You have to give them some compelling information, data-based as you can, and show them in their own self-interest that this is going to be better. And join with us, and we'll work together. and it just worked out great.
Oh, that's Dale Carnegie talking in terms
Is
of the
it?
other person's interests.
Oh, yes.
So,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I didn't know the guy personally, but I went to high school with him,
Oh, I don't think so, but but that's part of the self-deprecating aspect, right? Is there? You've been immersed in this solid state now more than anyone else probably in our industry over the last couple of decades, as far as breadth of solid state.
Yeah.
Is there anything going to unseat solid state lighting? Anything take its place?
Okay, good question. No. No.
Okay,
I give
let's
you,
move to the next
no,
question.
No, but I want to give you the short answer because bureaucratic people talk too long. Okay, so it's no. And in a sense of theory, and I've talked to my team, Morgan Pattison, on this one, that theoretically this is it. Now, the lasers have some chance of being a bit more efficient, and that's looking at electricity in to photons out. It is it. Now, you may find some other source that has something else people want that would be an attribute that they would like, but it's not going to unseat it. But also keep in mind, I learned this one from Terry McGowan, no light source has ever been totally displaced. We still buy candles, as the Romans did. And it's
That's
great.
interesting.
Yeah. And at first I thought, boy, this guy's nuts. And then I started thinking, like, everyone has candles. In various parts of the world, kind of regrettably, they burn kerosene. Now, fortunately, I don't think any more whale oil. The whale oil must have been quite a day, and that was the lamp.
I listened to a podcast that made the claim that no technology has ever been displaced. Buggy whips, individual handheld plows, horse plows. In some country, somewhere in the world, somebody's still making this, somebody's still using this.
Yeah, that's probably true. Plus, negative and minus. This is kind of the end of the trail, but it's not the end of the trail because the platform with semiconductors allows all these other attributes to be enhanced and better understood. And everybody knows, this is a trick I use. When you get up in the hotel room, you turn every light on in the hotel room. And you will find that you're waking up pretty quick. Just a little trick, and it's those kind of things.
Light is a stimulant.
Yeah, right.
You're never going to leave this industry. At least I hope you don't. If you could predict or suggest the future consumer education in lighting, any ideas what that would look like?
Well, it is very difficult. We in the solid state lighting team talked about this, and we engaged the retailers as an intermediary, and they agreed that there would be material available in the lighting aisle. And that's another story in itself. If you go into a big box and look at that lighting aisle, it's the IRS codes and the lighting aisle. They're kind of confusing both. And we convinced them to have material posted in the lighting aisle, which would fairly quickly, and this is amazing, 7 seconds is all you got, to reach the consumers. They just walk up and say, I need a new light bulb. With some information that would help them make a decision, and of course we wanted them to steer a little bit more towards efficiency. So what do they think? The first thing is, how much money do I have? For a part of the population, especially the people who go to Walmart, how much money do I have?
Sure.
And that is going to shade the purchase. And so price, then the next thing is brightness. And then they might fiddle around with the efficiency. And then it gets into a number of other attributes that are interesting. And it turns out, from standing in this aisle and overstepping my bounds and saying, can I help you? A par 20, what does that mean? And the person would talk with me, and I say, always bring the bulb. Always bring the bulb, and then your life will be easier. And so it is just so confusing. I don't know how. Possibly, though, well, here we are, we're talking about, let's change the way people receive light or the way the light comes from the source. Maybe in the future there won't be things like par 20s and all these screw-ins.
Yeah.
Well, how old is that? 110 years to screw in base? the Edison base. It's
Oh yeah,
very old.
it is.
And
Hubble came from Hubble in the 1800s. Harvey Hubble.
wow, maybe it's time to think differently.
Yeah.
And we call these things cell phones because you had a phone.
Yep.
How many people have a rotary phone? No one I know.
No.
And so it's all changed. The phone ain't a phone anymore.
Yep.
And so maybe lighting needs to think along these lines. I don't know.
Well, and actually Harvey Hubble did the pull chain, and he worked with it over 110 years ago. But this technology, actually, the electric industry is moving very slow. I mean, those wall receptacles look basically the same that they did over a century too.
Right.
But you were talking about other things that we could do with SSL that we really couldn't have done with previous sources, like somebody sitting down and it knows that it's you and it knows your age, maybe through facial recognition or your phone that you're carrying, whatever, and adjusts the lighting accordingly. Becomes adaptive and intuitive. Smart lighting.
Yep. Yep.
In terms of your research and development efforts and your workshops and technology workshops, smart lighting was a part of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, we talked about that. Again, I'm going to drop back about 3 minutes. Reaching the consumer is really tough.
Okay.
Really tough. But giving new attributes to the lighting, I think, is very important. And we had panels probably that discussed this. And there's just a number of things you can meld. Like your cell phone now has a light, right? It is a light. And it has all this other stuff. And maybe the question is to go back to like the zeroth question. Well, what do you need the light for? Okay, so if we go in the hall, we need a light of some nature to navigate down the hallway of this hotel. But is it doing it? Do you have to do it the way it is doing it? And sort of a little brainstorming here. I remember years ago we put new parking garage lighting in the Department of Labor building in Washington. And one of the interesting things, of course, this is like 10 years ago, is as somebody, and they did this intentionally, walked up the parking ramp, the lights went on. And you didn't have to see the person. You just knew the person was coming because the lights were going on. Well, they didn't do that 15, 20 years ago.
No.
And so you just think things through. And I think one of the questions would be parking garages, but people usually have their headlights on. Do you need both? I don't know. And there's just all these questions that you want to kind of re-inspect because you can change it. And that's kind of the excitement. And then we hit this earlier today about the unknown unknowns. Those are the beauties.
Yes.
And so we can say we don't know, we'll make this up, the efficiency of this lamp. But as you start to look at it, you go, well, I didn't realize, unknown, I didn't realize that the light distribution is not good. It's not correct for what we're doing. And those often are the high payoff questions. And so you constantly ask yourself questions, constantly. And it's tough, I think, for the companies because they look at things by quarter by quarter by quarter. And some of these things you got to think about for years and try things. So, it's tough to move fast. Well, it's tough to move fast in a bureaucracy.
Well, and the people you're referring to, they're not only worried about the quarter, they have a much narrower agenda, and you're dealing with so many skill sets in the lighting industry that each have a narrow agenda, and not always the same one.
Yeah.
But you've been looking at this with a lot more breadth.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that it's a little difficult. So what is it, a mile wide and an inch deep, and then an old quote or something? And I know a lot of people, and that's very helpful. And honestly, a lot of people said, Jim, call me. Call me if you ever have a question here. I'll be glad to help. That's very generous, I think, very nice. We were very interested in something that we're doing. One of them was connected lighting, which really gets complicated for me. And several of these people just flat out in the hallway said, here's my card, call me. And that's very valuable. And this is an area that's got some uncertainties. And how much do you want to do with it? There's a lot you can do with it. I mean, lighting is part of it, but it's kind of a platform for a lot of other items.
Yeah, oh, very much so. And it's converging with a lot of other trades right now, too.
That's right.
But what you mentioned with people, it's, particularly when you're a lighting insider now and part of the lighting community like you, it's a very collegial community.
Yeah.
And before we wrap this up, is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't discussed? Anything you'd like to say?
Well, kind of like two things. The Southside Lighting team was just indispensable. I recruited each one of them. Wonderful people, willing to work hard, willing to turn things overnight. They're going to have to work tonight, but they do it. And the team got along, gets along just great. That doesn't happen at DOE always. There's a lot of contractor friction. And my thing is, I'm selfish. I want you to work for me. I don't want you picking up other assignments, because then you don't think about the solid state lighting assignment. You might be doing this, you might be doing that. And they pretty well did that. And so the team is just outstanding. And
do we want to recognize who they are? I mean, you got PNNL, Akoya.
Yeah, we have a number of people there. You have PNNL, you have Karen Marchese at Akoya. One of the things at DOE which is not emphasized is communication, which is terrible. It's you have to be transparent, and you tell them just about everything. I never revealed my true age, though, Mark. And you have to communicate to them so they know what you're doing. And that was very key. We had PNNL, we had Morgan and Lisa Pattison at SSL Technology. This is interesting. Both got PhDs in semiconductor science from Santa Barbara. 2 PhDs, same house. My wife tells me 1 PhD in a house is just too much. I didn't take it personally, though.
No, please don't.
Yeah. Then we had DNR would do market, a lot of the market stuff. They have inroads with the retailers and the utilities. We had Ed Petro, who did a lot of the small business innovative research. And that's a lot of work, because you got a lot of small projects and a lot of people who don't know the ropes, and they have to fill out all these forms. And Ed was patient, and boy, not me, and pass it on. And then administratively, everything went through NETL, National Energy Technology Lab in Morgantown. They would do the solicitation and organize the proposal reviews, and they had the money, which then they would place on these cooperative agreements. There's a lot of unheralded work there that has to go on. And then we have project reviews every year. And the slogan was, you're good or you're gone. And I told them this. That wasn't necessarily popular. So at the end of your first year, we would review where you are on your progress. And if you weren't where you should be, we say, well, are you going to somehow make this up? Are you going to do this? And if we weren't convinced, we would just stop the contract. We had the authority to just stop it. We never publicized it. There's no reason to embarrass people. And you just don't continue to sort of put money on something you don't feel comfortable. The money went back, and we funded another project.
Over the years, that clearly worked for you, because you had trusted partners.
Yeah. So the team is really big. And the second thing is all the cooperation from the societies, IES, IALD. This is valuable, very valuable. And they would be involved. They would get advice. They would come. They would give speeches, and it just makes all the difference in knowing more. Somewhat that you have partners. That's warming. But be really Machiavellian. Who is going to carry this to the market? It ain't going to be DOE. It's going to be these folks.
Yeah.
And if they don't feel comfortable, if they don't like it, you can do all the research you want, and it isn't going to go anywhere. So that's the Machiavellian viewpoint, but it's true. So it's better to engage them on a really friendship, partnership thing, and you're ahead all the way.
Yeah, that was interesting. You had academia, but you also had all the manufacturers involved, and so the academic research transitioned into actual projects, and it worked. I got one last question for you. All right. So I heard you were an Orioles fan, so I looked, and by golly, they won a World Series 36 years ago. Is that going to happen this year?
That's right. No, I think they're holding back to spin it positively. As an Orioles fan, it's been tough. And my wife has said several times, "You stupid idiot, you should get a team that wins and stop it with the Orioles." But I can't. This goes back to like personal conditioning. I was the fan of the team I could get on a local radio station. So when I'm outside painting or whatever, I can listen to it on the radio. So when we moved to Washington, D.C. in '92, it was only the Orioles.
Speaks to your persistence.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
You bet. Good job.